It was late spring, and my dog Coco's health had taken a turn for the worst. She was about 6 weeks old when I got her, and at 12 and a half, she was having issues climbing stairs and walking, among other things. Thankfully, I was working from home and was able to care for her during this time. I, like most pet parents, was desperate to do anything that I could to help her get better. I spent hours conducting research on natural alternatives to pain medication, which is very hard on their liver and kidneys. I started making homemade food and turning kibble into moist dog food. Made batches of turmeric paste, peanut butter, melatonin flaxseed balls, and CBD oil infused treats. The vet and I reviewed her blood work bi-monthly to track any improvements, as well as to see where health challenges remained. I massaged her aching body, taking mental notes of the muscle waste in her hindquarters. I went to bed late and got up early, always searching for ways to make her comfortable and ultimately to make her better. To say that I was stressed was an understatement. My dog was dying and I could not come to terms with it. According to Walden University, stress has a profound effect on both our physical and mental health, including how we make decisions. Think about the decisions you've made under duress. Were they difficult to make because your brain wasn't clear? Maybe you've made a poor decision in the heat of the moment, before you had time to logically think it through. Whether it's these spur-of-the-moment decisions or simple day-to-day choices, stress impacts decision-making in many ways. For starters, stress affects the ability to make new decisions and adapt to change. One way that stress can affect decision-making is by limiting the ability to make novel decisions and adapt to change. For example, a 2012 study found that participants who were subjected to the stress of preparing for a medical selection exam tended to make decisions out of habit, whereas participants who were not under the same stress were able to make new decisions, adapting them to the situation at hand and the perceived consequences. Researchers concluded that the brain resorts to habitual decision making because it exerts less demands on our cognitive resources. Chronic stress alters brain chemistry and leads to poor decision making. Just as stress affects our ability to make new decisions, stress also affects brain chemistry, making it difficult to assess benefits and costs. This can lead to poor decision making where the risks are as great as the rewards. In fact, it all stems from our brain sensing anxiety, leading the brain to prepare for survival mode and enter what is called a positive stress state, where an increase in blood flow and oxygen to the brain leads to greater cognitive performance. However, when anxiety is not managed, the body shifts to a negative stress or toxic stress state, which has the opposite effect. There is a decrease in blood flow and oxygen to the brain, which promotes lower cognitive functioning and sends the brain into a chaotic state. In this state, the brain is unable to access the information it needs to make logical decisions. And stressful situations make daily decision making difficult. When the brain is under stress, everyday decisions prove to be more difficult. Amid the pandemic, the Harris Poll conducted a survey of American adults that found that people felt less stress regarding the future and more stress in making everyday decisions. 1/3 of adults surveyed said that the stress they felt from the pandemic made it more difficult to make everyday decisions, such as determining what to wear and even what to eat. Decision making can lead to stress and fatigue. Stress can impact our ability to make decisions. However, it also seems that the opposite is true. The more decisions we make in a day, the more stressed out we become. The phenomenon of decision-making fatigue states that the more decisions we make in a day, the harder it will be to make additional clear-headed decisions, also referred to as ego depletion. It's as if the brain has only a limited capacity to make decisions, and once the capacity is depleted, there's little left. Parents of young children surveyed said that the additional decisions brought on by parenting during the pandemic resulted in even greater stress and decision-making fatigue. Psychologists talk about two brain pathways involved in decision-making: an emotional path governed by the amygdala and a rational one governed by the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala is involved when faced with difficult decisions that have emotional implications. Decision-making often occurs in the face of uncertainty about whether one's choices will lead to benefit or harm. The somatic marker hypothesis is a neurobiological theory of how decisions are made in the face of uncertain outcome. This theory holds that such decisions are aided by emotions in the form of bodily states that are elicited during the deliberation of future consequences and that mark different options for behavior as being advantageous or disadvantageous. This process involves an interplay between neural systems that elicit emotional bodily states and neural systems that map these emotional bodily states. Stress can occur for many reasons, such as moving to a new home, losing a job, or starting a family. It's normal for people to be more emotional when they are stressed. To be clear, emotions and feelings are actually two different but connected phenomena. Emotions originate as sensations in the body. Feelings are influenced by our emotions but are generated from our mental thoughts. You notice the emotion of discomfort while at a party as your stomach clenches and your breathing gets constricted. Then your mind labels that as feeling awkward because perhaps you don't know many people there or you just saw an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend. Yet another person with those same emotional bodily sensations might label the experience as exciting because they get to meet new people or see their ex again. Take a different example of an emotional threat. A bully might respond with a feeling of anger because it feels empowering, whereas labeling the threat fear would be too vulnerable for them. In contrast, the non-bully might respond with feeling intimidated. This is why feelings can be so different from person to person in the same scenario. Rachel Allen, PhD and author of The Important Difference Between Emotions and Feelings, Understanding This Distinction is Crucial to Healthy Coping, asserts that our emotions are like the engine of the car. Our feelings are the frame. You wouldn't tune up your car and skip over the engine, right? The same goes for our emotions, which can give us a more accurate diagnosis of how we're doing in the moment. Emotions are the raw data, a reaction to the present reality. When an emotion is triggered in your brain, your nervous system responds by creating feelings in your body, what many people refer to as a gut feeling, and certain thoughts in your mind. A great deal of your decisions are informed by your emotional responses because that is what emotions are designed to do. To praise and summarize and experience and inform your actions. Whereas feelings can be diluted by stories we've created in our head based on events of the past or fears of the future, not necessarily the truth of the situation. Listening to our bodily emotions informed by our sense perception helps us connect to the reality of our present experience rather than to stories made up of potentially inaccurate beliefs. From our truth, we can make decisions that are right for us. We can get stuck in these mental stories, as most people do from time to time. We can get more truthful assessment of our feelings by first identifying our emotions. As it relates to Coco, I was stuck for sure. My emotions were driving every decision that I was making on my dog's behalf. And once engaged, your emotions will drive the decisions that you make as well. Your success may depend upon your ability to understand and interpret them. Excessive emotions result in clouded thinking, which leads to poor decision making. If we are in a bad mood and are very depressed, we end up messing things up and sometimes harming ourselves physically, financially, or emotionally. If we compare emotional and rational decisions, then we can understand the outcomes of both of the types of decisions. To develop emotional awareness, we must first connect to the visceral messengers in our body. Bring our hands to that area of the body, perhaps to the heart or the abdomen. Release any muscular constriction by softening and exhaling. Ask yourself what your emotions are trying to tell you. Awareness that there is a constant and complex dance between emotions and feelings could significantly improve your emotional intelligence, including your decision-making ability. To aid in your understanding of the matter, let me introduce you to Paul Ekman's emotional wheel. Using my experience with my dog Coco and feeling sad, we can look at the emotional wheel to more clearly visualize that sad on the inner circle is different from powerless on the outer one. Or to switch our focus to the positive, we can use the emotion wheel to see that the emotion of happy on the inner circle can result in a feeling of joy, powerful, or even proud on the outside circle. Okay, but how does an understanding of this help us make choices that are actually beneficial in the long run and not perhaps just perceived as beneficial in the short run? We do that by focusing on the resulting feeling. In other words, we need to consider how any particular emotion, inner circle, will translate into a feeling, outer circle. Then name the feeling you associate with your bodily emotion. Breathe in and out. This acknowledgement as both an act of kindness and a way to regulate your nervous system. Next, notice if you would feel better by shaking, stretching, or sighing out the energy of that emotion. Recognizing and responding to your emotions is a beautiful way to practice self-agency. Once you're familiar with what your emotions are telling you, you can go straight to the source in your body to stay balanced. This might include self-soothing practices like breathing exercises, releasing with movement, giving yourself a hug or getting one from someone else, finding a quiet space, and so forth. Explore this subtle but powerful practice regularly. People who have experienced trauma can be more emotionally numb. By slowly connecting to their raw emotions, they can begin to name it so they can tame it. There is so much power in self-acknowledgement to calm us, especially when it's gentle and warm-hearted. For people who are scared of big feelings, working first with their sensations means they can intervene before they become too overwhelming. Emotional intelligence helps you come back into the present moment by grounding yourself in your body, assessing your needs, managing reactivity with self-agency, and engaging in more thoughtful decision-making. Emotions are a wise language within you, always trying to give you useful information to stay regulated, resilient, and show up as your best self. Now use this information on how to develop emotional awareness to aid decision-making by naming what you are deciding. You don't need the emotion wheel for this, but you do need to consider exactly what the problem is and the ramifications of your proposed solution. Recognizing and naming all feelings you are experiencing in connection with the decision. These feelings will no doubt appear somewhere on the outside circle of the emotion wheel. Bring your feelings inward through the middle circle to identify its root cause, which is an emotion. Processing that emotion, not one of its symptoms, a feeling. And being aware of whether you want to make a decision from this specific emotion or if you just want to adjust course. Of course, you also need to do all the usual things you frequently hear about as conducive to objective decision making, such as avoiding making decisions when you're tired, stressed, or being influenced by non-objective actors. Nevertheless, identifying the root or emotional basis of your feelings will go a long way toward improving your decision making. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload new content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.